Hi guys, and welcome back to another video again with the Powers. I'm Jake, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you my review of the game Stardust Coffee, coming to you from Lobby Games. In Stardust Coffee, guys, you are a galactic coffee maker, and you are in your spaceship going around the galaxy collecting ingredients to make coffee. You can enhance that coffee with some magical stardust, right? To be essentially the best coffee maker in the business. And you can upgrade your ship to be able to make better coffee or make coffee faster, essentially, or gain resources quicker. But you also got to watch out for some space pirates, because they will come along and try and rob you of all the goods and resources that you have collected. All right. Since we do not have a playthrough of this game on our channel, before I dive into my review, let's go ahead and jump down to the table. I'm just going to give you a brief overview and tutorial of how to play the game very quickly, and then we'll be back up top here for my review. Alrighty, so we are down here at the table where we have everything set up for a two-player game of Stardust Coffee. So the end goal of the game is to be the person that collects the most victory points. The main way you collect victory points is by completing these coffee cards and gaining the number in the top right-hand corner of the card. Those are the victory points. There's a couple different coffee cards you have. Every character or every ship is going to start with their own coffee card. So this is like the red player's coffee card. This is the blue player's coffee card. And then over time, you'll have the option to choose either silver coffee cards or gold coffee cards. The difference, I'm sure you can see, is on the card. It's just a difference in scoring points, but also those are going to require you a couple more ingredients. Now, in the normal game, you would put 2 of each card, but for space purposes here, I have just done 1 of each card. Before I dive into this tutorial, I just want to clarify that the version of the game you're looking at here is the Kickstarter edition of the game. So the couple of the stretch goals is all of these ships, and the resources are going to be screen printed. Other than that, everything will come in the base game. So Stardust Coffee is going to be played over 10 rounds, which you're going to use this little marker right here to track the round tracker. In a round, there's going to be 5 different phases, okay? Starting with the first phase, what you'll do is, depending on where the round marker is on the board, you're going to go ahead and take that action. So if you are above a space with an event, these little tokens right here are events. So you have dawn events and dusk events. You would flip the token over and you would resolve that effect. So this one would say every player would be able to get 2 basic ingredients of their choice. All right. At that point in time, you would then go ahead and do the power-up action, which is rolling your dice. So you would roll dice and then allocate them accordingly. There's 4 dice in the game corresponding with each color of a resource, right? So the blue dice is equal to water, the pink dice is equal to milk, and the brown dice is equal to the coffee beans. The yellow dice is equal to Stardust. So you'll just place the blue dice, pink dice, brown dice in this slot here. The yellow dice is going to go around the board. You'll see there's different numbers with the yellow die. Those are tiles or worlds that you can collect Stardust in. So that I rolled a number 2, so I'll put it in the 2 tiles. So if I ever want to collect Stardust, I need to go to that tile. Okay, so that is essentially phase 1 of how the round would work. Moving into phase 2, players are now going to take actions, okay? What you will do is you will select a dice on your turn, and you will select one of your ships. So everybody has 2 ships to start with. Once you complete your first coffee card, you will then be able to gain access to your 3rd ship. So you select the ship, you select the dice, and then you can take up to 7 actions on your turn, okay? These actions, I'm not going to go in detail of these actions. I'm just going to briefly overview them. One of the action is you can move counterclockwise 1 to 3 spaces. The next action is you can activate the color of your dice, okay? So let's say I took this blue dice right here. Activating a color, I can either jump to either the next city tile or the tile of that color. So it's blue, so I can either jump to the water space right there, or I can go on the city globe tile, okay? That is one option. The other option is I can go ahead and harvest using the blue dice, which will then produce that resource of that color. So as I stated, guys, there's 4 resources in the game. You have coffee beans for brown, water droplets for blue, milk little cartons for pink, and then Stardust for gold, okay? So let's say, again, I took the blue dice. Let's say if I didn't want to jump, I could harvest. What you would do is just put 1 water resource on each of the blue tiles, okay? So that's the next thing I could do on my turn, is activating a color. I could activate the number of the dice. So depending on what that number is, I could do a couple different things. If it was a 3 through a 6 and it matched a tile I was on. So for example, let's say I'm on this tile right here, and instead of taking the blue dice, I took the brown dice. You see how in the top right-hand corner of this card, or the top left-hand corner, I'm sorry, of the card, there's a number of a dice, which is a 5, and there's a resource right there. So on top of the 4 basic resources that you have advanced ingredients as well, okay? And these advanced ingredients are for the brown dice. You have dark coffee beans and chocolate. For the pink dice, you have whipping cream and milk foam. And then for the blue dice, you have ice and whiskey, okay? So activating the dice number is a way to get these advanced ingredients. So I would just activate the number 5, and I would gain 1 dark cocoa bean because it matches. Again, the dice has to match there. So if I'm on this tile, I cannot use to get an advanced ingredient of milk foam because I need a 6, and that is a 5, okay? So that is activating a number. The other thing you can do, continuing with activating a number, if you have a 1 or a 2 and you are on a city globe space, you can restock, which is either gain 1 basic ingredient of your choice, or you could gain, you trade in 2 basic ingredients of 1 color to gain an advanced ingredient of that same color. So I could trade in 2 water to either gain 1 ice or 1 whiskey, all right? That's restocking. The last thing I can do with a dice number is activate one of my dice powers here on my board. So you have 6 different dice powers that you can activate. You just choose the number. So I have number 1. I would be able to activate that if I unlocked the dice power, which we'll get to that in the next step. All right, which that actually is the next step, upgrading spaceships. So the next thing you can do on your turn is upgrading spaceships. So if I pay the required ingredient and I have a Stardust in my inventory, I can unlock that dice power. So let's say I have a 1, so I have a chocolate. I would pay my chocolate, and I would pay my Stardust. Now that 1 is activated, so whenever I rolled a 1, I could choose to activate that 1 ability. All right, the next thing you can do is collect Stardust, all right? So again, you have to be on the space that the Stardust die is right above, so right here, okay? What I would need to do is pay the advanced ingredient of that tile. So this is showing a whiskey. So I'll be able to pay a whiskey. I would collect a Stardust from the pile, put it in my little inventory there, and then you would drop a Stardust on that tile just like that, and this die would get exhausted, okay? The next thing you can do is deliver coffee. So if you ever have a coffee card that is completed and you have either passed or end your turn on your home base tile, okay? So it has to be your home base, not another tile. You'll be able to trade in your coffee card and get a new one out. You can only have 1 coffee card at a time. That's your work in progress coffee card. So you'll be able to do that, and then you return all the ingredients back to the supply on the coffee card you just turned in. All right, that is delivering coffee. And the last thing you can do on your turn is attacking a pirate. All right, so let's say a space pirate was right here. You have to be within 1 space of a space pirate, so either on your space, there or there, I would be able to attack this guy. I pay 1 whiskey. He takes a shot. You will move him clockwise to the next port. So there's 3 ports for space pirates to come out. You have A here, B here, and then you have Y right here. So you would move him to clockwise to the next nearest port, and he would just be set there. And then you have an honor track, which is right down here, and you would move your token up on the honor track, and as you move along this track, you'll be able to collect different resources, okay? So those are all of these 7 actions that you can take on your turn. Again, you can take all of these actions just by selecting 1 dice, and you can do them in any order that you would like. All right, that was the second phase. The third phase is the pirate movement phase. So there'll be a movement track right here, and depending on the number of players that you have is the track of your choice. So that's the 2-player track, This would be the 3-player track, and then this is the 4-player track. And you would just put that track out there. You would move the pirates counterclockwise however many spaces. So this is 1, 1, and 2, so they would just move counterclockwise 1 space, all right? If they land on a tile that you are on, okay, so let's say that is like that, they land on that tile, there's going to be a little marker right here, and that's going to determine what resources they're going to rob from you. So they will rob that many depending on the round number. So we're in round 1. He would rob 1 coffee bean from me. I would have to pay 1 coffee bean back to the resource pool. If I don't have that coffee bean and I have a dice power unlocked, I would have to exhaust or deactivate that dice power, okay? And then the way you would reactivate that is pay the ingredient that is listed on that dice power. So again, going back to 1, let's say it was deactivated, all right? I would have to pay another chocolate bar to activate it again, okay? So that essentially is the pirate movement in a nutshell, okay? They'll move always the number of spaces on the track. Okay, the next step is the coffee making phase. So after the pirates move, any ingredients that you have on your spaceship, this is where you will hold ingredients. So the gray area, the 8 slots that are in gray are for your basic. These 4 brown spots are for the advanced, 2 for the dark, 2 for the chocolate. These 4 are for the milk advanced ingredients, and these 4 are for the water advanced ingredients, okay? Whenever you have collected ingredients, so let's say I had that, or let's just say I had 2 coffee beans right here. I'm the red player. So what I could do is move a milk and 2 coffee beans over to that. And so now in order to complete this card, I just need some whipping cream, right? That is how the coffee making thing is going to work. The only way you can deliver coffee is by going by or landing on your globe. Just because you complete a coffee card in this phase does not mean you get to turn it in. Okay, want to stress that because that's very important to the game. And then the last phase is just the cleanup. What you're going to do is you would reset the pirate movement track, bring out another pirate marker. So there's a little stack of 9 markers here, each with one of the different resources on it. And then you would move the round marker, and then you would start back up with the next round. All right, so that is essentially how you play Stardust Coffee. Again, you'll take all these turns, you'll go through 10 rounds. At the end of the 10 rounds, you will score your victory points on your cards. And some cards will have extra bonus scoring conditions. Again, I'm not going to get into all that. Pretty lengthy tutorial walkthrough right now, but that is Stardust Coffee in a nutshell. Let's go ahead and jump back top where we're going to get into my review. All right, let's go ahead and jump right in, starting with the theme. I'm going to go ahead and give the theme here an 8 out of 10. I think this is a very good theme, and the theme ties in really well with the mechanics of the game. Essentially, at the core of this game, it's a dice rolling, pick up and deliver type game, but it really gives you that feel of being like a galactic coffee maker, right? Because you can like teleport. Some of your dice powers are like a warp drive, things like that. You're going to these different globes that produce these resources, and like on the tiles, you can kind of see that, like on the, the water tiles, there's like an ocean artwork to it. On the coffee bean tiles, like the volcano is erupting like coffee, and things like that. On the milk tiles, there's like cows with milk. So it really gives you a good thematic feel to the game. Watching out for those space pirates. The space pirates are going to come and attack you, or you can do battle with them. I think the theme here is a great theme with the coffee and trying to make these, turning in the coffee card. You got to be on those globe tiles, like going back to the city, right? You can't just turn coffee in when you're on a milk tile or something like that, because nobody lives there, right? So you got to go back to the city to serve these types of customers. So I think thematically, the theme ties really well here into the mechanics of the game, and you do feel like you are a galactic coffee maker. So very good theme here, 8 out of 10. All right, moving on to the components. As always with the components, we're going to go ahead and jump back down to the table. I'm going to show off these components, talk about the components, and then be back up top to finish the rest of my review. All right, taking a look at the components here, I'm going to go ahead and give these a 7.5 out of 10. Man, look, these are some really nice components. They're on that verge of being very good. There's just a small few little hiccups here that I think prevent it from being at that very good level, okay? Starting with what I like and what's really great. So all of the screen printed resources and meeples right here, all of your spaceships, you can see that they each have their own individual screen printed design on there, and it's not just like a generic design. It's not just a generic one symbol or icon screen print. It's like 3 different things. So like there looks like a mini rocket, there's the edge of the ship, and there's like a little star above there. You look on this blue guy, he's got like a legit rocket there with 3 stripes and that little star. They really match what you're doing. Well, actually they would go like that. They really match what they're doing with the artwork on the board, okay? So that's the first thing. And then taking a look at the screen printed resources, I mean, look at that little milk carton, right? It's got like a little cow on there. And then the water droplets look like little water droplets. So the meeples here are really nice. The next thing is the artwork of the actual game. Visually, this is a very pleasing game. I mean, the coffee cards are so detailed. They have a nice little finish to them. They're these nice oversized cards. They feel great in your hand. The tiles themselves are just generic, and I didn't mention this before. You will put this board together randomly, but these tiles are just generic tiles, but they're pretty thick and sturdy, but they have great artwork on them as well. The board looks pretty good, and then, you know, you just have generic dice, okay? The things that kind of prevent me from giving this an 8 and being very good components is the advanced ingredients. I kind of wish they had separate advanced ingredients, because you just use the basic ingredients as an advanced one. So like, for example, let's say I turned this water droplet into some ice, right? The only thing I would do is just put it in my little area as an ice, and that's how I denote it as ice, okay? It gets bothersome sometimes to track some of those advanced ingredients. And then the second thing is the storage option of the box itself. So this is a relatively small box. You can see that, right? Look how small this box is. Trying to get all of this to fit in this box is a pain sometimes, because what you essentially have to do is put the board in first and then lay each tile individually across in like a 3x3 pattern to get all of that, just to get that stuff to fit. And sometimes even doing that, all of that is not going to fit, okay? And then just some of the other things, like these dawn tokens are just punch outs. These little things are punch outs. What really bothers me is this very tiny little pirate movement marker. I wish they could have done something different with that, and instead of it being so small, because every time you try and move it, like, you see the trouble that I'm doing it. And the same thing with these little pirate markers. They're so small that when you try and flip them, like, you're going to move the board in a certain way, and it's going to kind of get messed up. So those are the things that, look, other than that though, the game visually looks amazing. The components here are awesome. I love the screen printed resources and the meeples and things like that. And so that's why I'm giving it a 7.5. And it's just almost right at that very good tier for those little qualms that I have about the game in general. All right, let's go back up top where we got setup coming up next. All right, moving on into the setup. So I'm going to go ahead and give the setup here a 7 out of 10. I think this is pretty good setup for a game like this. Essentially, all you're doing is you're making the board, giving each player their player board, their meeples, getting the cards out, and getting the resources ready to go. Not a whole lot to the game. It's going to take you about 5 to 8 minutes, maybe even a little shorter than that, to go ahead and set this game up, but nothing crazy here. 7 out of 10 for me. Moving on into the length here. So I'm going to go ahead and give the length a 6.5 out of 10. Reason being, for me, it's kind of a mix of my personal opinion and how I normally do the length, okay? So what I typically do with the length of these reviews is I see what they give the length on the box is, and then I give the rating based upon what that is on the box, okay? But I'm also mixing in my personal opinion here as well. So what I'm doing, let's start with the first part, of what they say on the box. So 60 to 90 minutes is the playtime here is what they put on the box. At that, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. I think they are right in line with what they're telling you. This game runs really, really long, okay? A 2-player game is going to run you about an hour, okay? Or like 50 minutes to an hour for a 2-player game, right in that range. 3-player game is going to run you close to 75 minutes to that 90-minute mark. We have not tried it at 4 players, but based upon what I've seen, that 4-player mark, you're looking probably at a 90-minute minimum, getting close to that hour 45, 2-hour range with this game, okay? So I think they're right in that mark of what they're telling you on the box, which would be a 7 out of 10 for me. They're right in line. However, me personally, I just feel like the game is too long and it gets dragged out. And so that's where, like, my personal opinion, I would rate the game a 6 out of 10, because I think with a small game like this, I don't want something that's going to take an hour to an hour and a half to play. And so it's just a little too long because you get like a couple rounds in, and then there's so much downtime here that you kind of get bored with the game. You're like excited to play it at first, and you're going and you're doing your thing because the first couple rounds move quickly. But then once you unlock a couple dice powers, once you unlock your 3rd ship, the game really starts slowing down as you try and get to some strategy. And so there's a lot of downtime that ends up happening, and like you kind of get bored very quickly. So my personal opinion, I would rate it a 6 out of 10. So I give it a 6 out of 10. I would normally give it a 7 out of 10. My personal opinion, 6 out of 10. Meeting somewhere in the middle, 6.5. Okay, so 6.5 out of 10 for me with the length. Moving on to the difficulty here. Remember, as always with the difficulty, guys, the lower the number, the easier we feel the game is. The higher the number, the more difficult or challenging we feel the game is. I'm giving this a 7 out of 10 here. Look, I think for a small game, this is really, really complex, all right? What doesn't help is the rule book is very, very confusing, and I think that has a lot to do with a language translation issues, okay? And they don't really give you a whole lot in the rulebook to go off of. I mean, we had to play this at least 3 or 4 times, me and Sierra, and I had to play the solo mode for myself to kind of understand and get to feel what was going on. And then I even had to go online and look at some other reviews that other content creators have done to understand the game, because the first couple times we were playing the game completely wrong, okay? So the rulebook is very difficult and hard to grasp and understand. The second thing is just the amount of things that you can do in this game is overwhelming. Like I said, on your turn, you can take 7 different actions, and they get so confusing with like, okay, what did I do? Now, they do give you a player aid card, and there's 4 player aid cards, but then what's also weird is at first, again, here we go, the first 3 times we played this game, we were like, how do you keep track of what you've done? Then I realized they give you these nice little cubes, these purple cubes, like when we were playing it yesterday, and I was like, oh man, I think this is to track your actions, but they only give you 7 of them, so it's like, I used it to track my actions, and then she used it there, and we're moving the cubes back and forth. Then also on the player aid cards, it's a front and back. So it's like, well, if I track this side, then I gotta flip it over here, and like you can do these actions in any order. So it just gets really complex and confusing. And then the actual actions themselves, they have multiple parts to that action as well. So it's, you know, if I activate a number, I can either produce if I have a 3 through 6, I can restock if I have a 1 through a 2, or I can do one of my dice powers through a 1 through 6. So there's so much analysis paralysis here that's going to go on and going to happen, trying to figure out what to do, and it draws the game out even longer. And it's just, you get confused with like, okay, I picked the dice, and I want to go to this color spot, but oh wait, it's not the same number as an advanced ingredient because I want the advanced ingredient. And so I hope you guys can kind of get a feeling of what I'm explaining here, of just some of the complexities in the game. And then again, like I said, with the rulebook, there's not a whole lot of clarification on a lot of things, like the solo mode. It just tells you that if the AI bot completes 4 coffee cards, they automatically win. But what happens if it doesn't? Like, is there like a scoring victory point meter? Like, how does that work? So the rulebook does not explain things very well. It leaves a lot up to interpretation, and a lot of house rules are going to have to happen. So we think this game is very complex for being a small game. 7 out of 10. All right. Moving on to the replayability. I'm going to go ahead and give the replayability here a 7 out of 10. I think there's good replayability here with the game because the strategy that you take to try and win the game is always going to be different just based on the number of shared choices. You're not going to be able to unlock all of your dice, or you're not going to be able to unlock all of your powers on your ship every playthrough. So you're going to have to pick and choose and prioritize what's most important. You know, you can take different strategies in. Do I want to ignore the space pirates or like focus heavily on the space pirates to get victory points? And there's a lot of different options. The tiles on the board, the way you set it up, is randomized. So it's just a lot of different things that are going to happen every single playthrough. So I think there is good replayability here, 7 out of 10. Moving on to the price. So I haven't seen this out for retail. I don't know anything about it for being on retail. I backed this for $34 on Kickstarter. I think at that price, I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. I think that's a very good price with all of the screen printed meeples, the cards themselves, everything that you're getting. You're getting a lot here for a small game. It also comes with an expansion, the Irregular Moons expansion, which just adds in another thing that it adds in another dice and adds in another thing that you can do on your turn with those moon cards. So I think overall the production here, the artwork is great. The resources, the meeples, are fantastic, and the value that you're getting here I think is really good. So at this price point at $34, it is an 8 out of 10 for me. Okay, moving on to my overall rating. Man, look, this is a tough one. This is a tough one, and I'm sorry, Low B Games, but I'm going to go ahead and give this a 6 out of 10 here. Look, I think the game is just okay. There's a lot that I do love about this game, and I really, really want to love this game so much. Like, the theme is great. The mechanics of the game, that pick up and deliver, is great. The visual presentation of this game is beautiful and amazing. You know, Chai Tea is one of my top 5 favorite games that I love playing, and so this to me gives me that feeling of chai, and so but with just coffee, and I love that so much. But there's just a couple issues that I have for me that really are just glaring issues that prevent me from giving this game a good rating for me. The first one is the difficulty and the complexity of the game. There's just so much going on here. I think sometimes less is more, and I think they could have just streamlined and cleaned up some of these things that you could do on your turn. I think they tried to give you too much here, right? With 7 different things I can do on my turn, and I can take all of them or just 2 or 3, and then doing them in any order that I like. It just gets way too nerve-wracking and analysis paralysis trying to go on here, and then trying to keep track of what I've done, what I haven't done, all of those different things here. That drags the game out exponentially, and is just very confusing because, like I said, you're trying to decide before you even take a dice, how am I going to use that dice? Because I can use that dice in multiple ways. I can use it for the color, but if I use it for the color, am I going to be able to get an advanced ingredient for it? Like, it just gets really complex. I wish they made things easier to where you could just go in order. Like, I can move and then activate the color of the dice and then activate the number of the dice. I wish they made the game in that order because that would change things so much. But being able to do things out of order and keep track of all that and have all these different steps is just really frustrating and confusing to me. The next thing is the rulebook. Again, the rulebook is very hard to understand and complex. The first couple times I played this game, I thought you could only do one of these 7 actions on the turn, okay? And so that's how I was playing it. I was like, what is going on here? This game is terrible. Because how do you even complete a coffee card? And then, like I said, I had to go on to the PDF version and found out there was some translation issues compared to the rulebook that I got and the online version. So when I looked at the online version, there was actually translation issues, and then it made sense that you take all these actions. The same thing kind of happened with like there's a recharge action where you can roll all the dice again. Same thing happened with that. Like, we were having trouble trying to understand that. And so there's not a lot of reference in the rule book for certain situations that are going to pop up. And there's not a lot of clarification. And so that's pretty frustrating as well. And then the last thing is just the length of the game here. An hour to 90 minutes for one game. And like I said, what ends up happening is, because of all the different steps on the turn, people are trying to figure out what they want to do. And so turns are taking 10 to 15 minutes per turn. And so if you're trying to plan your turn and you got it planned out, you're essentially just sitting there waiting. There's a lot of downtime here with this game. For a smaller game like this, I don't want to be spending, an hour to an hour and a half. I want to have maybe, 30 to 45 minutes or 45 minutes to an hour with a game like this. And that's really what is detracting it for me. And so all that being said, again, I still think Lobby Games, you got something here. You got a good game. You got a good concept. I think a lot of things just needed to be cleaned up. The theme is great. The mechanics here are great. The pick up and deliver mechanics with the space pirates, those are the mechanics I'm talking about that are great. And then the visual presentation is amazing. But for me personally, again, just those three things that I highlight, just the complexity of all the things you could do on your turn, the rule book is having translation issues, and then just the overall length really is what detracts it from me from being a good game, I feel, for being a 7 out of 10 for me, or like even a 7.5. So I'm giving this a 6 out of 10 here. I think the game is just okay. But that is my overall rating. All right, guys. Well, look, I hope you understand my rating. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope all that stuff makes sense. Again, I'm not saying this game is bad at all. There's a lot of great things about this game. There's things that I enjoy here. I think this is a good game. I think it just needs to be streamlined down a little bit. And so other than that, it's good. All right. Well, that is my review of Stardust Coffee, the brand new Kickstarter game coming to you from Lobby Games. As always, go ahead and drop a like on this video. Please leave a comment down below. Did you back Stardust Coffee? Were you even aware of Stardust Coffee? What are your thoughts on Stardust Coffee and what I had to say here? If you have a different opinion, please let me know. I'm always open for constructive criticism. If you have not already, guys, please go ahead and hit that notification bell so you can keep being notified when new content drop. And if you are not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel so we can keep bringing you more awesome content. All right, guys, y'all have a great one. Bye.